Hey everybody, thought I would do a video explaining in-class quiz 4, which was a nice straightforward problem using a data set and then doing some multiple regression analysis and also single regression analysis. So I have the quiz answer script here, and you have access to that too. So you might want to open it and follow along. I'll try and give some commentary about what I think are best practices in doing a R Markdown script. So we start out with our YAML, the YAML, these four lines, which generally you don't change, just changing the title and the and your name obviously would go there. Then we have our first code chunk. Our first code chunk, often call it the setup chunk, right? Our code chunk starts with the three backticks and then the brace, and then R, and then we'll call this one setup. And then usually in this one, we might have include equals false. That way, nothing that's in this code chunk will appear in our report. Many of the library commands, for example, will generate messages and notifications about the package. We don't want those to appear in our report. So including having this option, include equals false here, will suppress all of those results. We'll also read in the data in this code chunk. So we have the URL here, and then we have our read.csv command, and we read the URL, which has the link to the data set, and we call the data set mort for mortgage, right? And then we have our three backticks, the end of the code chunk. Now we have our first text chunk. So this is the text that will be the text of our report. Notice how my header here, I'm using three hashtags. So that way it'll just be a little bit bigger than the ordinary text. So it's not going to be some giant thing. If I had one hashtag, this introduction would be a really big thing, big font. I don't want it to be big font. I want a very modest increase in the font to denote that this is a section header. So I'll have introduction. And every report should have an introduction. The introduction should say what the report does. This report analyzes how much military service and eligibility for mortgage subsidies affected home ownership rates among men, right? So every report should have a sentence that says, what is it that this report does? And then we move on right away. Table 1 provides descriptive statistics for the sample. We can see that when you're describing what the table says, always include a couple statistics from the sample, like from the table. What's the table telling us? Draw attention in your text to what the reader should be looking for in the table. So we can see the home ownership rate is 0.4, and about 10% of the sample is non-white. Now we have our code chunk for the table of descriptive statistics, and I'm going to change this. Shouldn't be set word. It should be maybe table 1, something like that. That'll be nicer. We have echo equals false, comment equals NA, message equals false, and warning equals false. Those are the usual code chunk options. Notice I can't have option include equals false because then the table, which we see here below in the appears in the little window, that wouldn't appear in my report. But of course I want it to be in my report. So I can't have include equals false. Instead, I have these other four options here. The table of descriptive statistics is in the model summary package. The command is called data summary. There's a number of variations on it. We tell it that the data is equal to mort, which is the data set. We give it the variables that we want with plus signs. Then we have the tilde, and then we say what statistics we write, what statistics we want it to present with plus signs. So mean, standard deviation, median, min, and max, and the number of observations. And then we give it a title. And it's good to have tables numbered, table 1, table 2, table 3, and it's good to have figures numbered, figure 1, figure 2, figure 3. That way, when you're talking about them in the text, you could say, in figure 3, we see this, instead of saying, the figure shows. The reader saying, well, which figure? Especially if you have, your text is not in order. So here's our table of descriptive statistics. If we keep down, we now have another section. So again, three hashtags to make the section header just be a little bit bigger. Table 2 presents the results of four single variable regressions with home ownership. Each of the estimated coefficients is statistically significant as the p-values are less than 0.05, as indicated by the asterisks. That is, we can reject the null hypothesis. This is, our formula writing that you should have in your script so that you can cut and paste it and adapt it. You don't have to reinvent this language every time. You have to adapt it to each script. So there's no points for creativity. In the textbook, right, we have Cormac McCarthy AI generating text. And the point of that is to illustrate, no, that's not what we want you to do, right? There's no need for flowery, weird styling when you're talking about regression coefficients. You just want it to be straightforward and use the same words that everybody understands every time you do it. Notice I talk about the standard errors are heteroscedastic corrected standard errors. So going back to chapter 4, you should remember that discussion about heteroscedasticity there in chapter 4. Some more discussion of some of the coefficients in the R square. And then here's our code chunk that runs the four regressions. So we have four simple single variable regressions. We gather them in a list. Notice that I make a really simple column label. Some of you had column labels that were like, full sentences. So that makes your table be really wide. It looks awful. Your column label should basically be one word or two words. So to have all four columns fitting nicely in the table. Then we have our model summary command where we display the models. Stars equals true, the heteroscedastic robust standard errors, the two decimal places, we could have three decimal places, the goodness of fit, we have the number of observations, the R square, the adjusted R square. I think we could have um, RMSE, I think I can't remember the syntax for the other one. Let's see when we knit it whether that is indeed the syntax for the standard error of the regression or root mean squared error. And then numbered table 2, single variable regression results of determinants of home ownership. Then we have our section 3 called multiple regressions, and we have table 3 presents this, and we have similar discussion which you should read, and I'll correct this. Subsidized. There we go. And then our third section has two regressions. Then we display these regressions. So I see I didn't adapt this. So regression 5 and regression 6. And delete this. And regression 5 is with no QOB variables. And here we go. Yes, QOB variables, right? QOB for quarter of birth variables. And we'll have that. Let's see if it is RMSE. And I think then we're ready to go. So notice also we title it table 3. So I'm going to save this and now I'll knit it. And it takes a little while because it has to go and get this fairly large data set from the GitHub site, from the Vincent Arrow Bundak website. But it's coming along. Let's see what it looks like. Almost there. The little engine that could. And here we go. Excellent. So let's see if, yeah, RMSE is the standard error of regression. So I got that right. So we have our four single variable regressions and then our two multiple variable regressions, right? If we wanted to interpret a coefficient, this coefficient of 0.31 means that if you are veteran status, holding constant your ethnicity, your race in the United States, we would call it, you're 0.31 less likely. The probability of you owning a home is lower by 0.31, 31 percentage points less likely to own a home. That's how we would interpret this coefficient. Notice that changes quite a bit when we include the quarter of birth. And so that suggests that veterans who weren't eligible for the subsidized loan didn't get as much home ownership, right? So just being a veteran controlling for the quarter of your birth, which determined how eligible you were for the reductions, you were only slightly, you were 12 percentage points more likely to own a home. Really, that the other 20 percentage points, this 0.31 compared with this 0.12, the other 20 percentage points are due to the quarter of birth that you were in. If you're in the wrong quarter of birth, you're much less likely to own a home, it seems. So that's how we might interpret these regression results. So you should read this commentary, and this script is what you should aspire to. Notice that our section headers are, not gigantic. They're just a little bit bigger. Maybe even 4 would be fine. 4 hashtags would just be a little bit better. Another way you can do it is also there's an option to bold text. So then you don't even change the size, but you just have it in bold. So hopefully this is useful for you. This is what I expect from labs going forward, this level of neatness. Notice how there's no code showing up in the lab. So that's what I expect from you.